So, Phil recruited me to sell these cards, and now I am recruiting you. Don't worry about Phil. He drives a Corvette. He is doing just fine.
Hello, friends of the internet. Welcome. Welcome to another day, another live stream. Excited to get this going. First things first, I realized I didn't update the intro, so I know there's a few new VIP members because Reaction Therapy, Tom purchased, or gifted rather, a number of memberships on the weekend. So if you are one of the new channel VIPs, hello to you as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got the Bubba Cam back in full force. You'll also notice it's a little bit messy behind me because I had to move Bubba's dog bed out of the living room because someone who will not be named kept peeing all over it. I have a puppy, if you're new here. I have a 4-month-old corgi, and she is still learning where we go to the bathroom. So I moved it to a place she cannot reach. So if it looks kind of like chaotic behind me, that's what's going on. Welcome, welcome. Marie, Harrison, Lori, Phoenix, Richard, Lindsay. Welcome. Lindsay says, I got my hot chocolate, working on my comic, ready to watch some Boss Babes battle it out. I have my tried and true President's Choice sparkling water. As fruity and delicious as always. I'm excited for this too. So I haven't listened to the podcast we're going to be listening to today, but I came across it, like I always do, on the Life Coach Snark subreddit. It was recommended that I watch it. So I figured we could all do it together. And the episode itself, the stream is titled, This Client Hates Her Coach, and I called it a Battle Royale because allegedly in this interview, it's like a coach on a podcast with her coach. So the coach client is also a coach, has her own coach who is her mentor. And it's this mentor's podcast. And the client is apparently yelling at her the whole time. So it should be interesting. We're going to see. I'm just going to fix the camera. I feel like maybe that's better. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So Lisa says, I'm working out while listening, so I won't be commenting. No worries. Hello, hello. We are going to get rich today for sure. Coffee. It's late. Where are you? Do you drink coffee? I can't drink coffee past 2 p.m. I was having this conversation with my friend the other day. We met up after work to go for a walk, and she was like, you want to grab a coffee? She's much younger than me. And I was like, absolutely no, I do not. I will not go to sleep if I drink coffee past 2 p.m. Even decaf sometimes is a little bit risky. Welcome. Okay, if you missed the post in the community tab today, I started my own subreddit. So if you're interested in joining, go to reddit.com/r/Danielle Ryan or go to the community tab. I've linked it there. And it's just going to be a space for us to kind of like all hang out, and you can give me ideas if there's things you want to see in videos, or maybe you come across like an Instagram post or something and you're like, this is freaking weird. You can post it there. I think it'd just be cool to have a platform where it's not just like me talking at people, and instead we can kind of like all collaborate together. So if you're interested in joining that, we love to see it. I also love to see this. So thank you so much for 8 months of membership. I noticed, so I think I got monetized in March of last year, which means some of you are coming up on your 1 year of being a channel member, which means your little emoji is going to turn into a unicorn soon. So I'm very excited for that, but also excited for 8 months of membership. Thank you so much for your channel support. And I'm so glad to hear that you're getting richer and richer, because that's what we're all here for, is to get insanely rich so we never have to work ever again. Love it. Some people are hyping Suzanne up for the interview. If you guys haven't watched that yet, you absolutely should. It was a lot of fun. I love coffee and also can't have caffeine after 2 p.m. Off caffeine completely. Oh my God. Sorry to hear that. Sending you strength in this difficult time. Oh my God. I had an energy drink at 7 p.m. before I played football. I do that every week, which is usually why I'm still wide awake at midnight. Yeah, no kidding. We're glad to have you here, though. What do you need, buddy? Oh, you can't get down because there's stuff in your way? Maybe you should just stay on the bed. What's this? Or this. I got something else. We went to the pet store this afternoon and bought yak cheese for the children. You want it? Bubba's like kind of weird about it though. He only will chew on yak cheese after like 7 p.m. So right now he's probably just going to bury it in his bed and he'll come back for it later. Yeah, I went for the unicorn emoji because a lot of the coaches, the ones that write these like really dramatic, excessively long Instagram captions, always have the unicorn emoji in the string of 7,000 emojis that they use together. So love it, love it, love it. Okay, that's enough blabbing as always. So let's get into the context of today's video. So like I mentioned already, I was cruising the Life Coach Snark subreddit as I do every day of my life. And I came across this post where this person was critiquing multiple different coaches in the industry. Like, here are my honest opinions on coach ABCD. She was like naming them all out. So she got to the bottom of the list and she was talking about this one specific coach who I've been aware of. She's quite popular in the industry. I've put her in a few of my reaction videos. I've never talked about her by name. But if you're someone who is well-versed in the coaching industry, we'll say, you will know who this person is. Anyway, this is a podcast episode she did with her mentor, and apparently it's pretty spicy. It gets pretty heated. And some people were even alleging that there's like a little bit of emotional abuse going on throughout the conversation. So if at any point it becomes too much for you, you can feel free to leave the stream. I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. But I haven't listened to this, so I don't know how good or how bad it is, but I thought we could all listen to it together. So on that note, before we get started, I will just ask you to please do the following.
Raise your hand if you want to get rich.
I'm here to get rich, so I don't know about you guys. Love to see it. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Lindsay says, looking forward to being a unicorn soon. Only 5 more months to go. So something to look forward to. I think after 6 months, I don't have the option to like change the emotes until you get to 12 months. So you got to stick it out if you want to become a unicorn. I'm so sorry I didn't get the memo. Yak cheese is only for the evening. Love it. Oh, papaya juice. We love it. Love to see it. All the coaches have the unicorn product. Absolutely. Matt Moore, what is up? Okay, this is my friend Matt. He's from here in Vancouver. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, you absolutely should. He just posted a video. I put it on my Instagram stories if you missed it. He was trying to get out of $13,000 of credit card debt in 30 days. Very talented gentleman right here. Really great editing skills. 10 out of 10 would recommend. That's okay. Marie, I believe the way it works is, and I could be totally off base, but I think it's like cumulative over time. So even if 6 months from now you decided to rejoin the membership, or maybe someone gifts you a membership, I believe that counts towards your like 12 months. So it's not like it like resets as far as I understand. So if you were to rejoin for like a month at a time randomly, eventually you should be able to get to the 12 months, to the magical unicorn emoji. Love it. Ready to get rich. We love to see it. Ready to take notes. Let's get that bag. That's all right. You know, I really just appreciate the transparency. I think it's super admirable to see someone openly discuss their journey of trying to get out of debt. I think from like a psychology perspective, I watch a lot of Caleb Hammer just because I find it so interesting. I really appreciate the transparency aspect. All right. Bubba is probably going to leave the room very shortly, so I'm just going to turn his webcam off. And we can go ahead and jump into the content. Okay. So this is the podcast we're going to be listening to. I can't speed it up. This whatever podcast player this person is using, trash. There's no option to speed it up. So hopefully they speak quickly. You guys are going to have to let me know if the sound is working. As always, I anticipate technical difficulties. So I'm going to hit play, then I'll pause it. Then you guys can let me know if you can hear it or not. Okay? Okay.
You're listening to Literally, the podcast where you literally get...
I guess I just don't know how technology works. Can you hear it? Can you literally hear it? Let me know. So Bubba's still here. He's just standing at the door. Bubba, what you doing? My partner took our little baby corgi out for a walk so he can hear that the corgi is back and he wants to see. Okay, let me know if you can hear it. In the meantime, thank you so much, Lori. That is so nice. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the membership. If you're new here, I've added some new emojis. We now have a corgi emoji. If we're lucky, the corgi will come to visit us later. I really appreciate that. Okay, you can hear it. Perfect. Let's go ahead. I will stop talking. We can get into it.
A complete behind the scenes peek at a one-on-one business coaching.
This is definitely going to be a super interesting session, I think, for y'all to listen to. I think you'll get to really see some of the behind the scenes that really can happen and be super stressful when running a big business. I think you'll hear a lot of team challenges that can really maybe normalize things for you. And you will also see very spicy, very fiery Sabs. And I just want to preface this by saying, obviously, in most regards, she's teasing. She's certainly frustrated, and one of the ways that she deals with that is through humor and sarcasm. So please make sure to listen to this episode with that frame in mind. But in general, I think there is a lot in here that is going to be really, really, really helpful and supportive. And I think it will just be a great listen for so many reasons. So really excited for you guys to dive into this session. Hi, sunshine.
Haha, haha.
Do you feel as mad as you look?
More so. I'm holding it in.
Can you imagine? Okay, we're only 2 seconds into this interview. Can you imagine, Suzanne, if you're here in the chat, you come onto my YouTube channel for an interview and I go, "How are you feeling? Hopefully you feel better than you look." Already I'm getting a huge ick. That's so offensive. Even if you're friends with someone, I would never say that to anyone. Ugh, I already don't like this.
Okay, you want to tell me what's going on?
I'm pretty grumpy and hateful today.
I noticed.
And one thing I will say is, as part of the challenge from last time, I have journaled and sold every day.
You really have.
And I've uploaded screenshots of my journaling to prove it. And as you saw the last few days, it got a bit dark and angry.
It did. I feel like you brought it back a little bit yesterday, but yes.
Oh my God, I'm going to be the most annoying person as we listen to this. Point number 2, why are we showing people our journals? I don't care who you are, but you're not looking inside my journal, okay? That is weird, 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 weird. Showing the lack of boundaries that we talk a lot on this channel about, coaches blurring the boundaries. To me, having to show your coach your journal entries as a form of accountability, red flag, in my opinion.
I'm pretty sure the last line in my journal yesterday was "fuck this shit," but
it was.
Sure, we brought it back a little.
There was 2 lines of gratitude though, so
Yeah, I'm pretty hateful today. So the most recent fuck up that happened in the last 15 minutes before this call is there was a task to rebuild the Millionaire Mastermind automation, onboarding and offboarding that was assigned in September and was due September 23rd. 2 months later, it's not done yet, even though I personally spent 5 hours rebuilding all of the email automations for the onboarding, but of course it's still not done yet. So then today, finally, I spend an hour in a meeting to make sure everyone has everything that they need to get it done today. And then they basically send the email out to everyone who has registered for the program in the last year and a half. Even, you remember that email I sent last week where I was like, I kicked a chick out because she literally does not get boundaries. She got an email welcoming her to the mastermind. Yeah. So that was so exciting. So that happened in the last 15, 20 minutes right before the call. And then I kept asking, like, have we sent a correction email? It took like 15 minutes to send a correction email, even though in the meantime, I've like rebuilt entire web pages, like regenerated Slack links, like done a bunch of shit to fix this. And then I take a look at the correction email. The correction email only went to people who are currently enrolled, not everybody.
So I kind of was half listening because I was typing in the chat. Is she complaining about a contractor she hired to do this for her and they did the job incorrectly? So rather than like address the contractor and say, hey, you did this wrong, she's just putting the person on blast? Am I interpreting this correctly?
Fuck.
So.
And the correction basically said you're not enrolled or something.
The correction was one line. It's like, please disregard. I'm like, it took you guys 15 minutes. The literal sentence was, hey, name, apologies for the Millionaire Mastermind welcome email you just received. Please disregard this as it was sent in error. Regards, Team Sabrina. It took 15 minutes to write that and send it to only half the people. So that was so spicy and exciting. And yeah, I'm just living life on the edge.
So, I mean, you're getting your chaos.
Didn't ask for this, but yeah, I'm getting it.
Can you imagine being on her team? Like Suzanne is saying, let's bitch about my team and share it publicly. I'm thinking of like contractors I've hired in the past. That would be so offensive if I'm just like, I hired this person, they were a complete idiot, they did it wrong. Like, even if I don't name them by name, chances are if someone's kind of like in your bubble, especially in the coaching space, I'm going to assume they consume some of your content. There's a good probability this person might hear this. Like, it's so offensive and icky.
Getting your taste of chaos. Oh, that's such a bitch, though.
Yeah. So that was a super fun one.
So, I mean, obviously 2 different conversations here. One is that handled? And then 2 is like, how did that happen and how do we fix it?
Still not handled. Yeah.
So ultimately, team mistakes are going to happen. And what we want to know is like, what are the best ways to address it? So the first question you always want to ask is it handled, right? Like, let's just address the mistake first. I think that sometimes it's super easy to kind of go in.
What's with this like weird background music interlude? What's going on here?
Into spiraling or thinking about like the other mistakes that have gotten made. And the first thing that we always want to do is just address like, how do we need to handle what happened, right? And then the next thing is, how did it happen and how do we fix it for the future? This seems really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people kind of just want to move on from it versus looking at like, how did this happen exactly? So like something I tell my clients a lot is like, we can't really move on from a mistake until we know how it happened, because it's what gives us the trust and sureness that it won't happen in the future. And so being willing to go there with your team and have that conversation is really important. And it doesn't have to be in a punitive way, but it has to be in an understanding kind of way, right? Because it's so important for you to continue to feel safe and in trust with your team. And the best way to do that is to really understand how something happened and how we're addressing it and fixing it for the future. That will let you stay in that place of safety and trust. If you don't even know how it happened, yes, you might be able to forgive, forget, move on, but it's going to be really, really hard to continue to build that trust because you're not sure how it happened or how it will be fixed. So remember those questions. If a mistake happens, is it handled? And then how did it happen and how do we fix it for the future?
Yeah, I don't know. So fun fact about me, again, if you're new here, if you're not new here, you probably already know this. I used to host a podcast for about 5 years. And as soon as I heard that music interlude, I thought it was going to be an ad read because that's like the classic format in podcasting. It's weird to me that you would put music under like you talking. For me personally, I find it distracting. I know some people like that in the context of like YouTube videos and stuff, but I don't know. Just like this has nothing to do with the actual content. It's weird to me that there's like music playing while she's talking. I thought they were having a conversation, so I'm just confused.
Okay, what needs to happen there?
Well, I sent them the CSV file because I was like, here's the CSV file of everyone who needs to get their correction email. And then I untagged everybody who shouldn't have it, but they only sent it to the people who were tagged instead of to the CSV file. So that's a fun and spicy one. So now they're like, I'm going to go manually find the people who didn't get the email. I'm like, no, just use the fucking file. So that was a fun one. Why did it happen? Because when they rebuilt the automations, it was turned on, which basically means that everyone who had that tag was put into it for the first time instead of doing it properly. So that was super fun and super spicy. Can't wait. Love to live my life. And then also today I have a retreat from 5 to 9 p.m. and I have to have a meeting at 9:15 p.m. with the leadership team to talk about all the fuck ups that have happened the last 2 months. So this is another fun one that I get to add to my list.
Okay, but you're addressing it, which is very positive, and I'm very proud of you because I feel like
I am.
So to me, she's basically just publicly shitting on the fact that she's a business owner. Like, these are all normal things that you would deal with if you ran a business. Sometimes you hire employees, they don't do exactly what you needed them to do. Rather than put them on blast, you sit down and you have conversations about it. Why are we publicly recording a podcast complaining about regular things that business owners do every day versus just solving the frickin' problem? I don't understand this logic. What do they think they're accomplishing with posting this as a podcast episode? That's what I really want to know.
A version of you would have been like, I'm not talking to them, fuck them. So like, I think it's like very, very powerful that you're like being willing to have that meeting tonight, even though it's really annoying.
Exactly.
Whereas
Susanna,
me 11 months ago would have just fired everyone.
I'm aware.
And that bitch kind of wants to come back today.
Like, the episode itself is literally called The One Where Sabrina Loses Her Shit. And then I guess they're going to talk about challenges of running a team, how to do the mindset work, and then trade-offs that you have to make. But to me, it just seems like it's a complaining fest.
That one's dancing a little dance inside your brain right now. Let's not fire everyone. That seems like a bad idea, yeah.
I mean, it's not nice to do it right before Christmas, which is why I'm thinking if we do it now, then there's a bit of a buffer so I don't seem like a Scrooge.
Or we could figure out exactly where the error got made, who made it, and just handle that.
I have all of that. I have my list for the meeting today. I've got all of these things. I will do all of those things, but I'm just not confident that those improvements are going to get made, but crossing fingers, holding the hope. And that's where it's also tough because like I keep trying to, like if something happens, I'm like assuming it's a process issue. So like how can we improve the process? What's wrong with the process? Like what needs to be added to the SOP? Like do we need more automated check-ins? And like it just doesn't get done.
Exactly. This is my point, Richard. If I have a contractor who maybe doesn't do the job the way I would do it, and I want to complain about it, I'm going to text my friend or I'm going to go to my partner. Like someone mentioned, you know, your husband comes home from work and he complains about work. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pull out my microphone, open GarageBand, and sit down and record a podcast episode. Like, what is happening? In what world is this normal? Why? And again, like I say this in all of my streams, like it's not about, I don't know who these two women are. I don't really, like I've heard of them, but I don't know much about them. And it's not about them specifically. It's about working in an industry where this, or like a subsect of an industry rather, I don't want to paint the whole coaching industry with the same brush, but working in a subsect of an industry where shit like this is normalized, where people are probably listening to this outside of us here on this channel, obviously, thinking like, oh my God, it's so important that we have these conversations publicly because we need to talk about our emotions and learn how to work through them. Like, no, some things are meant to be kept private, and this is a perfect example of one of those things. Yeah, I'm losing brain cells, Matt. So if that's how you feel as well, you're not alone. Hi, yay.
And the correction basically said you're not
limited. Yeah. I promise not to fire anyone today, but I have no promises about tomorrow.
I think the question is this like a singular person issue, or is this like, it's unlikely that every single person needs to get fired. So that's what we need to look at. Like,
this is just at the top. Like everyone on the team is doing great. Like this is like a management issue. Like every single other person getting their projects done early, on time, done well. It's just, it's at the top. It's not like a team issue. It's a leadership issue.
Okay, good. So that, I mean, obviously that's super frustrating, but I think it's just helpful to be like, there is like one specific problem here. It's not really like a systemic issue. And it's not like you really do need to go fire everyone, because it is true to say that is growth, to be like, I can see how it's not all or nothing. I can see how there are some people doing great and there is one person that is struggling, and like I can hold both of those as true, right?
Yep. So fun.
Okay, so that meeting tonight is just with that person?
It's with a few people who are involved with these issues, but yeah.
Okay.
Now it sounds like they're planning out their weekend. So Matt's comment here, if you're listening, it just says, it does make me think about how much sharing is too much sharing with my own content. I have a few thoughts on this, and I think ultimately it really comes down to, as like Suzanne was asking earlier and I was kind of mentioning, thinking about like, what are you trying to achieve with sharing that thing? Because I think a lot of the times, especially in like the day and age of social media, even outside of the coaching space, there's this tendency to like overshare on the internet, mostly because if we think about it, we want attention. So we share certain things because we want people to react to it. So when it comes to the context of like what you are or aren't going to share online, really asking yourself before you make that post or before you decide to like publicly share that thing, asking like, what is the intention here and what am I trying to get out of it? Because sometimes there are things you want to share. For example, your recent video about talking about how to get out of debt. My assumption is you're sharing that in hopes of having other people who are maybe facing similar situations feel like they're not alone. Maybe you're going to share helpful tips and stuff that they can take away to apply to their own journeys as like a learning opportunity. There's so much positive that can come from sharing that. When I'm listening to these two women bitch about their employees, for lack of a better way to put it, to me, I can't think of one positive reason why we would share this, other than to maybe feel like if you have shitty employees, you're valid in your concerns. Like, I don't get what the intention would be with publicly blasting your employees on the internet. Because again, if you have a team of people, chances are at least one of the people on the team is going to be listening to this, right?
Of course, it's so great that it has to be at 9:15 p.m. because of limited availability that they have. So that's exciting. But yeah, no, I feel bitchy right now, but I'm sure I'll simmer down, have a Xanax.
Well, it just happened like 15 minutes ago. Yeah. Have some tea, have a Xanax, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, it also just happened 15 minutes ago. So of course you're like more fired up about it. And then it's like the cherry on top of like otherwise some additional errors that have been happening. So listen, there's no, like, you don't have to not let someone go. I don't think that's the thing. I think you just have to not do it from like a reactive place. So you have that conversation, you see what comes out of that, and then you decide from there. So one of the biggest goals that we can have in business, especially when it comes to our team and our clients, is to make decisions from a place of non-reactivity, right? It doesn't mean we don't get to have.
I'm sorry, I can't with this music. Ugh.
Our moment.
It's giving like cheap commercial vibes to me. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm at my parents' house watching cable TV, sitting through a commercial. Do you feel this way? Because if you do, you're not alone. Ooh.
And have our reaction, but it just means that we're not making decisions from that place. So what's really amazing about what Sabrina is doing is that in the past, what she likely would have done is like really wanted to avoid the situation, not had those conversations, not addressed it, and taken a really all or nothing approach with team. Like she said, she would have just like wanted to like let go of her whole team, completely pull back all the things, right? That was because those decisions were coming from a place of like emotional reactivity. Like when she was feeling the heightened emotion of what had just happened or what mistake had happened, that was the reaction to it. What she's doing really well here is allowing herself to feel the feelings and vent and be upset and do all the things without making a decision from that place. Still deciding that she's going to go into the meeting, having a really beautiful conversation, figuring out what happened, figuring out how to move forward, and really addressing it from a place of leadership as opposed to a place of reactivity. So just notice that, right? And notice the different outcomes that happen with that, right? One outcome like was really, really impactful to the business. And yes, it might feel good in the moment, but long-term, it's really not useful. And another one maybe doesn't feel the best in the moment and maybe means you have to wade through some hard emotions in the meantime, but ultimately supports the business long-term. So just ask yourself that question when you're making decisions. Is this coming from a reaction or a place of reactivity? Or can I let myself feel those feelings, get to neutral, and then make a decision? Because that's almost always where the best leadership decisions come from.
Yeah, I can do that, but that's why I've been extra grumpy lately in my journaling, because I have never worked more in my business, and it's not out of choice, it's out of necessity at this point. Like,
okay, and keep in mind this woman, the one who's complaining, claims to run a multiple 7-figure business. So she's complaining for having to actually work to make money in her business. That's what it sounds like to me anyway.
Today, for example. So I have a really dumb task, which is I have to check the PSs in the podcast emails to make sure they're correct. Why do I have to check the PSs in the podcast emails to make sure that they're correct? I don't know, but I do. So I go to check the PS because that was my task and I get my task done. And I look at it and it is selling the Become a Mastermind Millionaire replays, because this week's podcast episode is how I made 5 million in masterminds. So I go to look, nothing is set up. The sales page is not set up. The Thrivecart link is not set up. The automation is not set up. Like, nothing is set up. So then I had to spend an hour setting that up, even though I have my own stuff, which is retreat prep and podcast prep. Like, I've got stuff to do today. So I also had to do that today. And it's just shit like that I'm just getting very, like, particularly grumpy, because, like, I can't take that off my plate. Like, either I delete the PS and then we don't sell it.
And you don't sell
it. It's been on the sales plan for months. But yeah, so it's such a spicy, fun, exciting time to be alive.
Can you imagine, guys, having to, it makes me cry just thinking about it. Can you imagine having to actually work in order to make money? Like, this can't be real. This poor woman has to actually work in order to make $1 million. It's unbelievable.
So obviously, like, I know we want to be somewhat, cautious here in terms of conversation, but, like, is this one person just, like, not understanding those tasks? Are they not taking ownership of those tasks? Are they thinking they did it and it's not getting done? Like try to be more specific there.
There's a lack of quality control, so things don't get checked. So, like, for example, today's email was bullet pointed to say, like, number 1, 2, and 3, except it said 1, 1, 1. Like such a simple thing that if someone had just looked at it, they would have caught it. Last week's email, when I went to go update the PS, I noticed that the email literally said, like, hey, first name, instead of populating their first name. So it's just dumb stuff like that. So I think there's a lack of quality control.
Yeah,
I think that there's a lack of, like, follow-up and, like, making sure, like, things actually get done. And so when I've got big dick energy, shit gets done, because the thing is, the team is great. They know what to do. They've been on the team for 5, 6, 3, 4 years in many cases. Like, we don't have any new people on the team. So, like, everyone gets their shit done on time. It's just that they need more of that direction. So that's just, like, what I'm kind of coming up against. But yeah, so, like, last week, for example, there was an active campaign project that had been kind of on the books for 2-ish months. Pretty much zero progress had been made on that. So I was not supposed to be on that meeting, but I booked the meeting, led the meeting. Now suddenly the project's back on track. We had a Thinkific project. I get notifications. Yay, it's complete. Oh my God, so exciting. I go to look at it and I literally made a list of 25 things. And I was like, none of these things are done. And I spent like 5 hours on Saturday getting them all done. There was some other project that I...
Okay, but if you made the list of 25 things that needed to get done after the fact, then I'm going to assume that those 25 things weren't in the original list of things you requested. People can't read your minds. I had this actually, not to this extent, obviously, and I didn't talk about it on a podcast, and I'm not shit-talking anyone because it's totally my own fault, but I hired a contractor to edit some content for me, and when the footage came back, the, like, ratio of the, because I wanted to take, like, long-form YouTube content and turn it into a TikTok-style video, and the first editor that I hired basically just, like, cropped it like it would with YouTube Shorts, where it's, like, ultra zoomed in. And what I had in mind was that the video would still be in the YouTube sort of, like, size with a blurred background. But I never communicated that to her. In my head, I was like, oh, well, obviously you want, like, the full video to show up, so they'll just edit it this way. But in her head, she was like, no, you just need to crop it to the right size. Like, I totally get where she was coming from. So when she gave me the final videos, I had to then go back and say, like, oh, sorry, I wanted them done this way. So I ended up obviously paying for double for her time because it was my own fault for not explaining it. But it just goes to show, like, People don't read your mind. You have to tell people, especially when you're hiring contractors to help you with your business, you have to be very explicit in your instructions, or have it set up so that they're like checking in with you to make sure that through every step of the process, they're doing it the way you want to. You can't just assume that people will do things the same way you will. Otherwise, you should just do it yourself. Okay? I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
Can't remember, but it's just like not getting done. But then the project that I manage, the content bank, we got it done 2 weeks early. So it's like shit gets done if people manage them.
Has this conversation happened multiple times before? Or is this like the first like big conversation around it?
It's happened multiple times, but I think this will be the first time that it's kind of like, yo, this is like a do or die issue.
Yeah. Okay, good. So today it's going to be like, hey, if this doesn't improve within like what, the next 2 weeks, or like what feels reasonable to you there?
I would say the next few weeks. And that's the other thing that feels really stressful is like because of all of this shit, have not had an off week in a while now. So I'm getting extra grumpy. And then also I'm about to go see my family, which I love my family, but I think a lot of people would agree that can sometimes be a high stress time. And then when I come back, I have 2 weeks to finish everything on my list because I told the entire team, you can be completely off from like December 16th to January 3rd or 5th or whatever. So we're giving the entire team 2.5 to 3 weeks off. But that is with the expectation that we're going to get our stuff done. So I'm not going to tell the team like, hey, we actually need you guys to work longer because they didn't get managed properly. Yeah, so totally. I think there's no kind of choice here, but just to go really hard until then. And even just for myself, like I have been working so hard for months to have that time off, because I have not been getting my off weeks, either because I was really sick or last week was my off week and I worked every single day, like 8-10 hours. And I never, ever worked that much in my business.
And you were working that much because you were excited and you had things you wanted to get done, or because you were cleaning up all of this?
Cleaning stuff up. Like it was not really like things that I wanted to do. I did go into the podcast studio once last week. I did some content stuff, but for the most part, I was doing other people's work. Because that's the thing at this level that I feel like people don't really like talk about is like, just because your team doesn't get the thing done doesn't mean it can't get done. Like it still has to get done. So somebody still has to do it.
Right. In many regards, it has to.
Yeah. Suzanne is saying, I honestly don't see how this podcast is a value add to either of their businesses. And as we're listening, I keep in my brain thinking like, okay, what would be, if this was me on this podcast, what would be the takeaway here? If I'm publicly complaining about my employees on a podcast, what is my intention? What am I hoping someone takes away? I got nothing. If you have a guess, put it in the chat, but I got nothing.
Exactly.
Right. And then also when you're running a business of this size, like there's just 18 times more projects, right? Like there's multiple launches, multiple funnels, hundreds of clients, like different content pieces and projects and Facebook ad strategy. I had an ads meeting last week. I had an ops meeting. I had an active campaign meeting. Like there's just so much going on. And just like, even if someone's sick, like it doesn't need to be someone's fucking it up, but just because someone's sick and can't do it doesn't mean it doesn't get done.
Something really important here that Sabs is touching on is that sometimes we do have to pick up the slack, because ultimately the buck stops with us as the CEO, and recognizing that is really important and empowering, because things will happen. Like Sabrina said, like it doesn't even have to be a bad thing. It can be a team member getting sick or something, right? But things will happen, and feeling in our power to be able to step in is actually really, really valuable. Does it mean it always has to be the go-to solution? Does it mean we should overwork and clean up everything for everyone? Of course, no, it does not. But does it feel really empowering to know that you can still make sure your business moves forward and you still know how to do tasks in your business if and when that's needed? Absolutely. Do not make that wrong. You know, I think some of the narrative in our space right now makes any time that you kind of have to step in and do work seem wrong. And again, we don't want that to be the go-to solution for everything, but it's not so black or white, right?
It's your business. And again, we're talking about coaching businesses here. So it's not like they're running some like massive conglomerate where they're manufacturing pens. It's a service-based business where you are the service provider. So why are we saying, oh my God, I had to actually work in my service-based business? Like, it doesn't even make sense. I understand you hire people to outsource work. Like, maybe one day when I'm not just some lowly YouTuber, I will have a team of people who can source content for me and who can edit content with me or for me. But at the end of the day, I'm still the content creator. When you look at massive people like Mr. Beast, he still has to show up and work and be filmed in the video and approve the scripts and all of that. You don't just get to have a service-based business where you don't have to work. Why are we complaining about having to do the bare minimum? I just don't understand. I can't wrap my head around it.
There's usually gray area in the middle. The fact that Sabrina can step in right now is actually really powerful and supportive for her and her business. Should that be our solution long term? Of course not. But it getting to be a short-term solution so that things continue to stay on track and move forward is actually really valuable. And so just making yourself right for that as the CEO is really important. And just also normalizing that sometimes we have to do that. And sometimes that is how it works when we have a big business and a big team, if we want things to keep moving in the way that we want them to. Does it feel, I think if this is the first, like, hey, this has to change or we have to part ways kind of.
This is a really interesting comment as well. So Harrison is saying, if I were a contractor, I'd avoid this place like the plague. But then he's saying, I wonder if she gives as much credit to the people who overperform/deliver, or if she takes all the credit then. And so she had mentioned most of her employees have worked with her for upwards of like 3 to 5 years. And from content of hers that I've seen, there's never a mention of the team building the business. It's, my name is blah, 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 and I've built a multiple $1 million business. Like, this woman has been featured in multiple articles online if you look up her name, and you'll see her claim to fame is building this 7-figure plus business in, it was like 6 months or something. Nowhere have I ever seen, and maybe I just haven't seen the place where she does this, but in none of her content on her Instagram or the articles that I've read, does she mention the team of contractors or employees that helped make that possible. She makes it sound like she's doing the work. That's why I find it especially ironic that she's complaining that now she has to actually do work. Make it make sense.
I think it feels reasonable to give 2 weeks. It also feels reasonable because you're going away for a lot of that too. And so it doesn't really make sense for you to let someone go in that time frame. But do we agree, like, the conversation today is like, there's 2 weeks. These are the quality control things that are missing. If there's not XYZ improvement, which we can maybe talk about what you want those things to be in 2 weeks, like, this is not something we can move forward with.
I mean, I'm kind of a pussy when it comes to firing, so we probably can't agree on that, but I'm sure we'll get to talk about it a lot over the next few months.
Why would we talk about it a lot over the next few months if we're giving it 2 weeks?
I don't agree to that.
Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, I do.
You're like, fuck everyone. I hate everyone. I'm firing them and I'm never working this much again. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's give it 2 weeks. And you're like, no, this will go on for months.
Look, I'm not saying this isn't going to be a future CEO Confessions learning moment one day. But yeah, I don't know.
It could be. Okay, so we're ending it off the table for a second. But like, what improvements, like, can you concretely give that need to happen in the next 2 weeks so that it's not just arbitrary, like, we need better quality control, but it's like, whatever, we need these 3 projects done to like full completion and you having looked over them or whatever.
I've communicated what those projects are, and I've also rebuilt those entire projects in Asana myself. So I spent a couple of hours on those. I think there's a few issues why things aren't getting done. One is a lot of tasks don't have due dates or people who are assigned to them, which that's just like an immediate no.
Of course.
Immediate no. Second thing is a lot of tasks don't have context. So like, there's like little baby VAs who are getting assigned developer tasks, and there's like one word and it's like due on Wednesday. And I'm like, what the fuck? So it's like little things like that where like tasks are being assigned, but there's no context, there's no instructions, there's no follow-up. And then it's like, oh, well, I didn't get this done. And it's like, I mean, yeah, you're not even supposed to have that and there's no information. So I'm not surprised there. So there's that. And then I think just like general lack of organization or follow-up. Like, I get questions in 5 different places and I stop responding in them. I'm like, I don't answer questions in Asana. I don't answer questions in a Google Doc. Please don't email me a question. Please don't Slack me a question. Please don't put it here. Like, it needs to go in like 1 to 2 places max. So.
Okay, so your employees are asking you questions. You just don't answer them, and then you complain that they don't do their job correctly. Is that what I'm taking away from this? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
there's a few things. I've got a punch list for my meeting tonight, and I'm going to sedate myself beforehand so I can be very calm and professional.
So if we said these 2 things as the things that absolutely have to change, like within 2 weeks, every task needs to have details, dates, and assignment, like a person assigned, and your communication with them needs to be in a singular place. And if that doesn't happen in 2 weeks, then like obviously, you and I will cross that bridge, but like that's when things have to absolutely change. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, done.
I also think I'm potentially going to hire another VA because my VA is getting like pulled around for a lot of stuff, and she has like 2 jobs, inbox and content, and she's getting assigned like a bunch of shit that has nothing to do with her job description, and that's taking away from the stuff that I need. So yeah, I've got a punch list for today.
As long as she will know, like, these are the specifics that you have to improve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll be very clear with them.
Okay. Something really important when addressing any issue with your team is giving them really specific things to improve, and also sharing specific impacts sometimes can be really helpful. So specific things to improve. It's the difference between kind of saying like, hey, I'd love to see more attention to detail, and saying, hey, I'd love to see XYZ things not happen again, and I'd love for you to specifically check on XYZ things in future emails or whatever, right? Because we can actually know if that's happening. When we just say something like pay more attention to detail, like they might think it's happening and we might think it's not, and it's really hard to get on the same page with that because there's no specificity to that whatsoever. But if we
Exactly. To your point, Richard. Richard is saying, like, if your employees aren't doing what you tell them to do, go on a call with them and show them how to do what they're doing. Because obviously it's a communication issue. I think that's why this episode makes me so frustrated, is because there's zero accountability. Oh, what do you know? Someone in the coaching industry not taking accountability for their actions. Never seen that before. But there's no accountability. It's just complain, and I'm going to lay down the hammer and tell them why they suck. Like, maybe it's time for some of that mindset work, self-reflection that we talk about all the time here, ladies. Maybe we need to look at ourselves and think, wow, I wonder why this happened. How can I improve as a leader to make sure this doesn't happen again? Ugh, so frustrating.
We can give really specific requests and usually specific deadlines that we want those requests accomplished by. It's so amazing how helpful that is, because one, either the team member will really understand it and be able to show up for that, or 2, they won't, and then we'll know for sure they're not the right fit, because at the end of the day, we are clear enough to make sure. But if we're super vague, then we're always going to keep questioning ourselves, right? As like, well, did they or did they not? Did they kind of do it? Did they sort of do it? Am I being, a bitch? Am I asking too much? Like, whatever. It's so easy to go down that spiral. But if you're being super specific, it helps you gain a tremendous amount of clarity on if they are the right fit or not. So remember to use that in those conversations. And then also know that you can sometimes share specific impacts, not in a way of guilting or shaming anyone, but in a way of really helping them understand how missing certain things in the business ripples out. Because if they're not personally running their own business, it might be really hard for them to conceptualize that. For example, like knowing that, an email got sent out with like wrong links. Like, can we talk about like what impacts that has in the business? And like, if we have 13 people click on that link and we lose X amount of sales because of that, that actually is impactful on the business. Now, again, this doesn't have to be in a way to make them feel bad, but sometimes I do find that having people understand that it's not just like, oh my gosh, Sabrina's being so difficult about all these PSs and emails. It's more like, well, actually, we're really looking at the overall impact on the business, and here's what that looks like. Or, here are the 10 hours that had to get otherwise spent and taken away from other things. So again, you want to be sincere about how you're framing that in a way that actually just helps them understand it more. But sometimes it really is helpful to share impact so that someone doesn't just see like, oh, this is kind of like an overblown dramatic thing, but they can really see like, oh, it makes sense that when I don't do this, these 5 things happen. So can I be a little more intentional about doing this? Because
maybe can I give clear directions? Because what makes sense when people don't do what they were told when they weren't told what to do, and then they don't do it. Again, we're not mind readers here. We need clear instructions. And in fact, many employees need very explicit instructions because not everyone is like a self-starter go-getter, Some people need to be told, exactly what to do and how to do it. Just saying.
As I get the why behind it, right? We all function better when we get the why behind it. So helping your team do that can sometimes really be supportive too. And are you going to mention the 2 weeks?
No.
Okay, why not?
Yeah, I want to bring attention to this comment as well. Suzanne is saying, I trust my people will respond, let me know, and click the next email. I wouldn't see this as an impact at all. True clients aren't scared off by human moments. I actually had an experience recently where I was selling a digital product, and the first 20 people that bought it, the links were broken. And you want to know what happened? Everyone requested a refund and they all hate me. No, someone emailed me and said, hey, Danielle, just wanted to let you know that these links don't work. And what did I do? I sent out a second email with the correct links, and that was it. No one asked for a refund. I didn't get some angry person emailing me saying that I'm spamming their inbox. People understand that you are a literal human running a business. It's normal to have these kind of mistakes. Why are we freaking out about it? Her comment earlier about the if anyone's familiar with email service providers, you can use certain codes to autofill information. So she mentioned the name feature. So whenever you get an email from a brand and it says hey, Danielle, they're using that name filler, and whoever typed it out wrong. I've definitely sent emails where it just said, hey, name, because the code didn't work. It's not the end of the world. I don't think it's that deep. They're making it sound like it's more catastrophic than I think it is.
Because I don't make promises I can't keep.
Oh, because you think you're going to just lose your shit before then, or because you don't think you'll actually follow through with it?
I won't follow through. I mean, I want this to work. I'm very confident that everyone involved is very competent and very capable, and I want this to work because I put a lot of time into making this work, so I'm going to keep putting time into it. But I think the other thing is, anyway.
What if we just say to them, let's schedule a meeting for 2 weeks to reevaluate how this is going? Can we agree to that?
Yep.
Okay.
Can do.
I think it's not oh my God, you have to be fired. It's more just hey, we have to see improvement within a range of time, where it's not just hey, we'd love to see more quality control. And then you know what I mean? I think it's just about giving some kind of window there.
Yep. Spicy.
Done. Okay, great.
What a time to be alive.
Is your anger dissipating at all, or is it still quite high?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that they still don't have half the people emailed, but whatever. No, I'm still, I would say, decently pissed, but I just have to get through it. Also, I have a retreat today and tomorrow, and I had a bunch of time mapped out this morning and this weekend to plan all of that stuff that I wanted to do, but I haven't been able to do any of that because I've been doing other people's shit. I did some of it this morning, but I did want to talk about that today as well.
Yes, let's do that. And also,
whores.
You know what? I don't know if you want to do this, but I think sometimes when team has issues like that, they don't realize the impact of it. So even if you just added up the amount of time you've spent fixing stuff lately and brought that context to the meeting, I think that would be really helpful. Good. It's I've spent 10 hours doing it, help them understand the intensity of that.
Yeah, and then today I got really bitchy with it because in my own Google Calendar, I was 30 minutes fixing active campaign fuck up, which I won't communicate, but I do have all that time added up.
Good.
Yay. Let me find the retreat document. Okay. So it's happening today and tomorrow. I have the one from last November that I was going to use as a base, so I could basically just copy and paste that, but
this is a really good point by Linda Lee. She's saying it's scary listening to people with no experience in human resources or running a company now traumatizing their employees with horrible people skills. Yeah, I'm also as they Suzanne mentioned the 2-week thing, typically in corporate, from my understanding from friends who have had this, I forget what the term is, but when they put you on a performance review plan, is that what it's called? The when you're basically put back on probation. Isn't the standard usually 30 to 45 days, not 2 weeks? You have 2 weeks to get your shit together and then I'm going to fire you. That's such a toxic way to run a business, in my opinion, especially when you're not taking accountability for the fact that maybe I didn't give clear enough instructions. Maybe I wasn't really, direct in what I wanted the outcome to be. It just really seems to me like a bit of a cop-out to be yep, the employee sucks, give them 2 weeks and then I'm firing them. I don't like that attitude personally.
I don't know if I want to change a few things. So last year, what we did for November, first 15 minutes, welcome and icebreakers, 45 minutes, end of year sales plan / prepping for the holidays review. We just did Black Friday boot camp with them. So I feel like I could potentially swap that out, but it's usually just a quick chat to make sure, what are you selling for Black Friday? What are you selling in December?
Yeah.
Ready to take time off. So I feel like we could swap that for something, or we could just keep it.
I think that's worth keeping.
So then 15-minute break, then an hour and 15-minute 2023 sales planning. This happens in small groups and pods, and I hop around and help people out. We do have the sales planning workshop December 8th, so I could swap that, but I told everyone we were doing 2023 sales planning, so I feel like it makes sense to keep.
Yeah, totally. I mean, listen, I think that like it could be something that's more quick and like you could tell them like, hey, we'll go more in depth, but bring this like overview to the sales planning workshop. But I think it's still helpful for them to have.
Right, so I might drop that down to an hour instead of an hour 15.
Exactly. Yeah, just make it a little shorter.
Okay, then 15-minute break, then 45 minutes for a Q1 deep dive where it's like how to add 10K or more to your MRR in Q1 specifically. So like focusing on whatever those launches or projects are for Q1.
I love that.
Okay. And then 25 minutes, how I'm feeling.
Okay, hold on. So we just went from complaining about our employees for the first, how long have we been listening to this? 30 minutes. And now we're just randomly going to start talking about what we plan on doing at our retreat, which is tomorrow, isn't it? Didn't she say? Like, shouldn't we have already figured this out when we were selling tickets to our retreat? Shouldn't we already know what we're going to be working on? I'm so confused.
Feeling about 2022. So just like a mindset conversation on like, here's what your goals were. Here's what you accomplished. Like, how did you show up? How did you perform? Because I feel like a lot of people this year don't feel like they hit their goals. I'm not saying that like for my program specifically, but I just feel like all over the board, I feel like a lot of people got kind of bogged down by.
Did you catch that little slip there? I feel like a lot of people didn't reach their goals. I'm not saying the people in my programs, though, so you should definitely buy my programs because people in my programs, they get results. But generally speaking, everyone else outside of my program didn't hit their revenue goals. So you want to know the solution? Come to my retreat that I'm planning right now publicly on this podcast. You're going to be so rich at the end of it. It's going to be insane.
Post-COVID, recession, now midterms, I just feel like there's a lot of general stress. A lot of people had babies this year where it's just kind of feeling like, oh, I should have done more. A lot of people obviously really crushed it, but just kind of trying to hype people up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe it's even more like a more celebratory than just like a 2022 reflection. Maybe it's like something really specific, like celebrating 2022 or something that's like a little more hypey than like going into the I didn't hit my goals conversation, but almost more like how can we like see this through like a good angle for you?
Yeah, I do have a podcast episode on this coming out in a few weeks, so I'm not sure if I should just leave it for the podcast, but I would like.
I don't know, Lori. I don't know if this is a 9-part series or if they just recorded one of their 9 coaching calls. I'm not sure.
To kind of, the energy is really high in the group, but just if for anyone who maybe isn't feeling high, just to lift that up a bit.
No, I would do that with them. I think it's totally different to do it with you live in a retreat versus listen to a podcast. I would 100% do that.
Okay. And then last thing is 5 minutes recap and vote on 10-minute tactics, which is something we do every retreat the second day. So everyone submits a topic that they can teach in 10 minutes. So like examples of previous ones were selling through waitlists, selling multiple offers in the DMs, how to grow your audience on Instagram to 1 million plus. And then people vote. And then the next day there are 3 rounds, 2 people per round. People go to the room that they want, and then everyone records their own talk. So then there's like 20, 30, 40, whatever of these talks uploaded. And then people can watch all these like mini trainings basically.
I love it.
So that's day 1. So we've took 15 hours away from 2023 sales planning. So I could either give that to Q1 deep dive, which is 45 minutes, or I could give it to the 2022 win, or I could split the difference somehow.
I think Q1 deep dive, because that's almost like the meat of this. You know what I mean? Of like them. I
apologize if you can hear the dogs wrestling in the room over. Bubba won't stop barking.
Really walking away feeling like they know how to add that. And I think even if that looked like, some like hot seat time or whatever, like I think that would be worth it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not even really listening to what they're saying anymore. I'm reading the chat, but this idea of like taking responsibility, it reminds me of like when you have to do health and safety training at a job. I'm thinking in like Ontario when you do like your WMIS training, if you guys are familiar. But basically the idea is like ultimately the supervisor is responsible for everyone's safety. So if a workplace injury occurs, it's not the fault of the employee, it's the fault of the supervisor. And so in this context, we're talking not obviously about workplace injuries, but about mistakes in the workplace. The supervisor is always the one to blame because typically, like at least initially until an investigation occurs, but it's like if the employee didn't do the job correctly, maybe they didn't know what they were supposed to do. Maybe it wasn't communicated clearly. Maybe you weren't clear in your instructions. Like as the supervisor, the business owner, ultimately, whether you want to or not, and whether it really was your fault or not, you still have to take accountability, even if you don't necessarily believe in it. You absolutely don't go on a public podcast and bash that employee. Just saying.
That sounds good. So that is all good to go. And then the second day, I've got first few minutes, 15 minutes recap of the day before, plus more icebreakers, and then an hour on the one question mastermind, which I only do this once a year, usually maybe twice a year. But it's basically like you move into small groups, let's say like 4 people, 5 people, and then everyone has like one big question of like, if this question got answered, my business could move forward. And then they get 10 minutes masterminding per person with everybody. So I could swap that for something like content planning or funnels, because then the next kind of big thing is the 10-minute tactics.
And then what's after that?
Millionaire mindset roundtable, but I think I could swap that out since we did how I'm feeling about 2022. And then after that, we do deepest fear inventory, my wish for you exercise, and champagne celebration.
Yeah, I would definitely say let's play with the one question thing then, because, or could we do one question instead of mindset roundtable? Could the one question be at the end?
Yep.
Okay, so now they're straight up just planning her retreat. Is this a coaching call that they've just decided to publicly post as a podcast? Because it has no structure.
So,
and then we do like a training more in place of the one question in the morning.
Well, since we've already done mindset the day before, like celebrating 2022 wins, I can change the mindset roundtable for like a content training.
Or do the opposite, right? Like have it go like recap, content training, 10-minute tactics, one question, then deepest fear.
So recap, content, one question, tactics, deepest fear.
Yeah, that works.
What was the one that you said?
Recap, content, tactics, one question, deepest fear.
Yep, I can flip those. Okay. Yep, I can flip those. That's easy. Yay, thank you.
Good.
I've been getting a lot of questions about all my content output, so I thought I'd spend some time breaking that down a bit.
Yeah, because they're like, look at this woman showing up.
I called my dad yesterday because I needed his help with one of my coach's kitchen things, which I'll tell you about in a second. And he's like, oh, Bryony, you're all over the internet. I'm like, yeah, Dad, I am.
That's so cute. I'm sure he really is like loving seeing that.
Yeah, I called him because I needed help with his glue wine recipe because I did the coach's kitchen 12 days of Christmas. So we recorded the first 3. So we did my dad's glue wine, Deb's rum balls, which that's Paul's mom, and then we did the bacon wrapped dates. So those 3 got recorded yesterday.
So
now what are we doing? We're talking about what we're bringing to Christmas dinner? I'm so confused. Where are we? What are we doing?
Oh, good. Was it fun doing it?
It was. Yeah, it was.
Are you sure you want to do 12?
Yeah, why not? Fuck it. It's definitely like a big commitment, but also I feel like I'm just going to be so annoyed because that's what I've been feeling lately. Is I'm doing all this shit and I'm not even sure it's worth it. Like I get that this was like good content for the podcast, make Sabrina actually try hard in her business, but I was still rich before this, you know, and now I'm just rich and tired.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't do any of it.
Podcast over.
I think the thing, I said this to you in base camp, but I think the thing is you don't want this to be a big swing where it's like you go from like not really feeling like you're showing up to showing up too much and then to going back to like, why am I even bothering? Like, I think you could absolutely take a few things off your plate. Like nobody's saying that you have to like do all of these things to be successful. I think you were excited about doing a lot of these things. And so that's fair. But also like, you don't want to like then feel like you have all this shit to do, get resentful, and then want to pull back. So like, how do we avoid that swing?
Well, I don't think that it's the content issue, because like content at this point feels so easy. Like I recorded I made 3 full fucking recipes yesterday and like recorded reels for all of them. Like I record 4 to 6 podcast episodes at a time. Like I just sent out my 8th CEO confessions email. Like I am crushing it there. Where I'm getting my energy drained is with like the team stuff, which really shouldn't be happening 6.5 years into it, especially from the top. Like usually it's like more like on the ground that you have team issues, I find. I don't know that that's necessarily true for everyone, but yeah, so it's been a real dick punch lately.
So the statement that you made earlier about why am I doing all this and is it worth it is not accurate, or?
Well, the thing is, like, if I wasn't doing content stuff, then maybe I would have time to deal with all these fires.
Of course,
but the
I'm
thing
muted.
is, like,
sorry. Why does this always happen? I go on a huge rant. I was just saying that I think in reference to your comment about her complaining about being rich, I think the point she was making is she's already wealthy. She's already built a 7-figure business. And now she started doing all these extra projects, whether it was podcasting or content or whatever. And she's still rich. So they're like trying to figure out whether or not it's worth it to continue with these extra projects, especially if she's so tired of having to work. Is it worth it to continue with the podcast if I can be rich without it? I think that's kind of the point she was trying to make there. But either way, silly, in my opinion.
Content is such a non-negotiable for me. Like there's no fucking way I'm going to miss an email or like miss a post or like not go record my podcast. That like, since that is now such a non-negotiable, and client work has always been such a non-negotiable. Plus now I have to fucking journal and sell every day because I want my bracelet and the name change. Paul actually had a good idea. I think we should up the name change to adoption.
Oh, but that has to be more than 30 days.
Does it?
Yes.
I thought your love was unconditional.
I mean, but that's like a big one. Like, I think that has to be like 60 days.
I'll think about it, but I'll remember this when it comes time to picking out your Christmas present.
Fair.
Yeah.
But also, I think I should get a present at the end of this too. I'm just saying.
Probably. Noted.
I'll pick
one. So I've got like my stuff that like I'm not going to fuck up on this no matter what. So then when like other people's stuff gets added to my plate, that's where I'm starting to feel grumpy.
Which is fair. And I think like the win for you is not letting go of your stuff. So even though that's what your brain is like telling you is a good idea right now, I think it's helpful to be like, that's actually my pattern. Interrupt is not being like, oh, okay, then I just let go of this stuff, because I think that's what you would have done in the past. But it's actually like, no, like I really lean into handling this team stuff because I don't want to feel like I can't do the things I want to do in my business because I don't have the support for that. Like I want to address that as fast as possible, right?
Yeah.
Because the easiest thing in the world right now would be to be like, okay, fine, I just won't do all my content stuff.
That would be very easy indeed. But yeah.
Yeah, this whole like, woe is me. It's so hard. I had to work in my 7-figure business. Money isn't free. I don't know. We keep coming back to the same question, but like, what is the point? What do you think you're accomplishing by complaining about this publicly? I don't understand. I'm already rich, so like, why am I making myself do extra work?
Not doing it.
But you've gotten such a good habit going with that it would be such a bummer for this to be the thing that like makes you do that, right?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the nice things about being so far ahead with stuff. Like I would have to basically fuck off for 5 months to become behind on my podcast.
Yeah.
So I think we're doing really well there.
Right. And you want to keep doing really well there.
Yep.
And you don't want this like blip to be the thing that like throws you off, because that's when you're going to get super fucking resentful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're keeping the podcast. So even though we're rich and we don't need the podcast, we're going to keep the podcast. Got it.
Yeah. So I'll figure it out. I know I will, but it just makes me sleepy and angry.
Right, but I think it's fair to say that in the meantime, what we do need to figure out is like, is there a middle ground while you're cleaning up some of the team stuff where you're not working 8-hour days or whatever that doesn't feel good?
Not really, because these projects.
This particular comment is funny. I don't know if you're in the Life Coach Snark subreddit, but where I found this interview, the comment said, "Prepare yourself because it's basically Regina George being interviewed by Gretchen Wieners." So I appreciate this comment. But yes, Marette, I agree. This is a weird conversation. I don't really know what the point is. And I don't know. Now we were talking about complaining about our employees. Then we're talking about what we're making for Christmas dinner. And then we're talking about giving up our podcast because we're so busy. And now we're talking about keeping the podcast. We're all over the place. There's no real flow or intention to this episode.
Projects were due 2 months ago. So it's not like you can be like, oh yeah, let's just push them again.
No. But I mean, like, since you do have 5 minutes of the podcast recorded, can you take a break on that for a minute, even though, like, you know it will be consistently going out? Can you give yourself 3 weeks off that?
It's not really something I want to do, though, because I specifically, like, have scheduled out. I know exactly what I'm recording every session, and I'm taking 3 weeks off recording for Christmas time. So, like, back in September, I pre-booked all of my Q4 sessions.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take that time off because I have to deal with other people's crap. And then also I lose my lead time.
So in knowing what you know and knowing that like it might just be a full-on few weeks, does that feel like a decision and a trade-off you want to pick?
Yeah.
Like with all things? Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go very, very, very hard. And if anyone ruins my Christmas, I will send gorilla shit to their house. Like,
you are in fact not kidding. I know that to be true.
Yeah. And I'm going to go to their house and I'm going to sprinkle carrot seeds on their grass. And then 8 months later, they're going to be like, what the fuck? This is not a weed. This is a carrot. So, yeah.
I'm sure you're going to have people just signing up to work on Team Sabrina after hearing this. They're going to be like, oh, wow, that's what happens when you fuck up. Carrot seeds. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But I mean, listen, I think the best situation here is for you to feel like that's a choice you're intentionally picking. Like you want to keep doing the stuff. You don't want to use that. I mean, you're not picking to have the team issues, but you're picking how you want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Good. Very proud of you.
Thanks.
So what we're really wanting to avoid here is swings of taking so much action that you then start to resent it, right? Because sometimes that is easy to get into, and it's certainly a pattern that Sabrina has played in before that we want to really make sure that we're not going back to, where it's like we get super excited about something, we commit to a lot of things, we take a lot of action, then things don't go quite according to plan, it starts to feel really heavy, and then we resent it, then we go back to not taking any action. And I think so many entrepreneurs can relate to that swing that can happen where it's like we're super gassed up and excited and then we kind of lose interest and we feel resentful. And a lot of people spend, years and years going back and forth on the two in their business. And the real win here and what Sabrina's doing well is coming from an empowered place of picking trade-offs, right? So she has a lot of different paths that she could choose at this moment, but knowing that the trade-off she's most willing to lean into is to do extra work for a little bit while she cleans this up is super useful because one, it's hard to be resentful when it feels like you're choosing it, right? You can still be frustrated that you have to make those choices, but it feels like a choice, and it's much harder to harbor a lot of resentment toward your business or your team when you're actively making those choices.
I can't handle this. I cannot stand the music over the words. I know somebody else before said it like might make a more immersive experience. To me, this maybe it's just my brain, but it prevents me from even being able to listen to what she's saying because it sounds so much like an intro to a podcast. Like I can't even figure out like why is it formatted like this? I hate it.
And then 2, it feels like you got a say in it, right? So you're feeling really empowered as well. It doesn't just feel like, well, I'm kind of being forced into doing this. It feels
Oh my God, this is awesome. Sorry, I keep pausing and playing. Also, thank you, Life with Mimi, for the subscribe. But Marie says, I got a job, need to pass some security checks before it's totally finished. So I will soon have 9 to 5 work again. Woo! But 9 to 5 jobs are the worst. Why would you ever get a 9 to 5 job? Ugh, steady paycheck? Ugh, health benefits? Ugh, I hate it all. Stupid. Just kidding. That's awesome. Congrats, Marie. Super excited for you. Wahoo! I probably have a sound for that. Let's see. How about... Yay! I love it. Congrats.
I was like, well, I could just not if I didn't want to. But at the end of the day, like what I want more than this is to see this habit keep forming, to see this content keep going out. And so I'm willing to pick this trade-off. So really keep that in mind. It doesn't mean it always feels good or it always feels perfect or it always looks like exactly balanced and exactly how we want. But the way to prevent those big swings is to come from that empowered place and pick those trade-offs really intentionally. And that will help you wade through those times where maybe everything isn't going quite according to plan, but you're also kind of not shutting it down and burning things down from that place either. What do you think you would have done before?
Fired everybody.
And?
Stopped posting.
Stop selling.
Stopped talking to you. I don't know. That's about it.
So, like, can we give you a moment of credit that is not at all what you're doing? Like the fact that you're picking, like, to keep focused on your stuff and not even take that out of, like, using recorded podcasts is kind of interesting, right?
You really want to glorify burnout on your podcast? I'm not sure.
You're such an asshole. Are you really not going to receive this compliment? Is it really going to be that moment?
I receive it. Thanks.
Try a little harder.
I appreciate it.
Try to give yourself a little credit.
Yeah, good job.
You're irritating me.
Really good work. Yeah, no, it is definitely a big improvement / change.
How are they not embarrassed posting this publicly online? Like, just the way they talk to each other. I have too many thoughts, too many words.
/ shift.
Yes. Very, very good. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't find the middle ground there if you do need to move a few things off your plate. But I think the fact that, like, you're not moving everything and everyone off your plate is very big.
Yes, I agree with that.
Very, very, very proud of you. I know. You hate it, but it's true. I am.
Yeah.
You taking that in? Okay.
Very fun.
All right. How is it feeling to mindset and sell every day?
What?
How's it feeling?
Fine. Doing the mindset work?
Yeah, mindset and selling. Like, you've been doing it every day. How's it feeling?
Oh, I thought you said it's time to do mindset and celebrate it. And I was like, celebrate what, bitch?
Oh.
Suzanne, it looks like we have 15 minutes left. I can also play it on a faster speed if people want. I would be okay with that.
No, I said, how is it feeling doing mindset and selling every day? Although I would be into some celebration. I'm willing to have that conversation too.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a habit. I think I will be very pissed with myself if like one day I fall asleep before remembering to do it. So I remember last night I was doing it at like 11 p.m. to make sure I got it done. So I think the habit has formed. It feels good-ish, but I'm not totally there yet.
What's keeping you from being totally there?
I think just the last few days threw me off a little bit because I feel like it started strong. And then I was like, yo.
She's paying her. So the girl who hosts the podcast is the coach of the woman who keeps complaining about stuff. So the woman who keeps complaining is paying this woman, so she can't kick her off because then she won't get paid, right? Let's see. Okay, let's try
Murder
1.25.
Did it feel good to get that out though, or not really?
Yeah, I guess.
I feel like that's not too bad because they do a lot of dramatic pauses. So the 1.25, at least I think it's okay. If it's too fast, let me know.
I feel like you were just doing it because you were supposed to do it and it didn't really have like a connection to it.
I don't know about that. I mean, it feels good, but I think I'm just kind of like bogged down by what's been happening lately. So the feeling connection isn't totally there. Like the habit is there. I feel like I've gotten the habit of anything I've decided to do. But just like the feeling is not there today. I think it was a couple of days ago. So if you had asked me a few days ago, I'm sure I'd have been like, it's great. It's awesome. I'm so glad I'm doing it. The sales balls are not 100% there, but they're coming. Singapore Sabrina, she was there for a couple of days. And then I was like, fuck these hoes. So like, I'm sure she'll be back soon. But yeah, it's a lot of grumpiness lately that I think is kind of clouding things.
You know what I think is cool to see though is like what I was just giving you credit for of like making different decisions this time and stuff, like maybe that is part of it, because it's like, yes, you might not be able to be at, level 10 Singapore Sabrina when all this shit is happening, but you're also still neutral enough to make really good decisions and not like, burn shit down. So like maybe it's really helping in a way that like is insulating you from some of those like big shifts that don't really serve you.
Yeah.
So something really powerful to see here is how mindset can often insulate you from issues, even if it won't always make you feel 10 out of 10, right? So like Sabrina's not always going to...
Guys, just positive toxicity, what is it? Toxic positivity your way out of any negative feelings. If you feel shitty about your life, feel happy instead. That's my mindset advice for today.
Feel like Singapore Sabrina every single time she does mindset work, but you can see that her having done mindset work is really, really supporting her here, because we talked about all these decisions that she's making differently, right? She's not having these big swings. She's not avoiding the hard conversation. She's not pulling back or like firing everyone, right? She's choosing her trade-off. She's intentionally taking action. She's staying consistent. Like all of that is so useful. So yes, she might not feel 10 out of 10, but the fact that she's been doing mindset regularly enough to kind of balance herself so that when those tough things came up, she can make the decisions that are best for her, as opposed to being super reactive because she hasn't had that mindset support, is really helpful, right? So you can kind of think about it like a vitamin, right? A vitamin can't ensure that you never get sick or that you always feel 10 out of 10, but it can help you make sure that you fight it off quicker, or you're more immune to something, or maybe you're exposed to 3 different types of sicknesses and you only get one of them, right? It really can help so that you have more balance, and that's really what mindset can do. It's not always going to make you feel 10 out of 10, although often it will.
It will allow you to gaslight yourself enough into believing that you are the problem. Actually, you're not the problem. It's your employees that are the problem, okay? Don't forget that. Also, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for the subscribe. You are now...
Now you are one of us. One of us. One of us.
Okay, let's get back to it.
But sometimes what it can do is just insulate you from issues or old patterns that maybe would have popped up in a situation. So really important to see that power of it too, so that you're not doing it always expecting it to make you feel like the most amazing human in the world, because then you lose some of those other benefits, right? Like if I'm only taking the vitamin if I feel 10 out of 10 every time I take it, I'm losing all the other benefits it can give me, and mindset is exactly the same.
I think one habit I do want to get into is journaling earlier in the day, because I'm usually doing it when I'm finished with my day. So I think maybe doing it at the beginning of the day might set me up a little bit better. But yeah, usually it's like when I'm done with everything that I sit down and I journal, and then I'm like, oh shit, I've got to sell something.
But you really do.
I have.
I mean, listen, I think that like that's sort of the point of what you're doing, is like you figure out what works along the way. So it's like what you needed to do at first is just do it, and now you have the habit and you're doing it. So that's great. And then now you can be like, cool, but it seems like it works better if I do this, if I do that. So it's like you're building the the pieces as you go. And I think that's really powerful to see.
Yeah. Do you want to know one reason why I hate my therapist? I'll tell you. Thanks for asking. So
that was obviously my next coaching question. So perfect. So glad we went there.
So I was like starting to yawn. She's really fucking annoying because she's like, when you yawn, it's an emotional distraction. I'm like, or I'm tired. And she's like, no. I was like, what? So yeah, she's been telling me this shit for 1.5 years. So I just yawned. So obviously I'm tuning out of what you're saying.
I do think you do that. I think she's correct. Or you doodle. I don't know if you do that with her, but you definitely do that with me.
I don't doodle with her just because she's a ninja and she can see what I do. Even when she can't see it on the screen, she knows. But yeah, I also think the last couple of weeks were rough because I didn't get to see her the week before last. I saw her on Friday, which was nice. But the week before last, I'm not sure if it was a Jewish holiday or what it was, but she was off.
Okay, so you actually love her, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going for 2+ years now.
I know, but you just said you want to know I hate my therapist.
I tell that to Paul after every session. I also do that after every session with you. I go to Paul, I'm like, I hate Lacey. We're never talking to her again. And he's like, what the fuck? And same thing with my therapist. I'm like, I hate her. She's the worst. And he's like, yeah. You say that every week. So
do you think what you really mean is like, I feel stretched or I feel seen and supported and it's uncomfortable for me? Or what do you think you're actually saying?
What I'm saying is that Lacey's making me journal longer for legal adoption, and that just feels really emotionally manipulative.
That's going to be your complaint to Paul today.
Yep.
That's fair.
That'll be it. Take a vodka shot, do a retreat, have a meeting, don't yell at anyone, call it a day.
Okay, but remember how I asked that question and you're not answering it?
What was the question?
It was...
Oh, about you guys stretching me or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, what do you think you're really saying when you say I hate that?
I don't know. Probably I really hate being held accountable to the highest possible version of myself, and I would much rather go be a homeless rat in Bali again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually fighting the temptation to yawn right now, but I don't want to yawn because then I'm going to be broke forever, so I hate it here.
I think that is what you're saying. Or I think sometimes you're saying that it makes you feel uncomfortable when you're very like seen or held, because I think that is not something that is always the most comfy for you. Like when I was just trying to give you credit and you were trying to avoid it.
Yeah, well, I mean, good news. We're going to publish all of these episodes, so I'm sure that will destroy any sense of personal safety I've left.
Okay, so if she's saying they're going to publish them all, I guess the rest of them are also available?
You are on one today.
I'm on fire.
You really are. Wow. This is emotional manipulation, personal safety at risk. Like this is just really
burnout
today. Burnout. Yeah. Wow. Good times. So I just want to honor Sabrina and her transparency and honesty here. I love how much and how openly she talks about therapy. And I also love how she talks about like the challenges of that, right? So
I love how openly she talks about therapy. All she said was that she hates her therapist. And this is what her therapist told her about yawning. There was no like emotional, open exploration of like, I went to therapy and I learned how to work through problems A, B, and C. So why are we acting like she's so vulnerable because she mentioned she goes to therapy? Hey guys, guess what? I go to therapy too. You're welcome for me being so vulnerable in my expression. Like, what?
Saying how she kind of hates her therapist and me after sessions is actually like really normalizing and helpful, I think, because
I'm sorry, these questions or these comments are so funny because Richard is saying, can we please not listen to any more of them? And Lori is saying, can we please listen to all of them? So which one is it?
The idea that we're supposed to love every ounce of it all the time and that we don't find our own discomfort and patterns in it is so not useful, right? Because it feels like the second we're not feeling like amazing after every therapy session or every coaching session, that something is wrong. And that's actually not true at all, right? This is just a way for her to process those things, a way for her to process the discomfort that those things might bring. And honestly, that's what shows that she's really utilizing it and really leaning into it, is because there is some discomfort in that, because it doesn't always feel like great session, moving on, right? Like if you feel like that all the time, you're not necessarily stretching, right? It doesn't mean that you can't overall see the benefits of the session, but if you never feel like, oof, that was, a lot, then I would say maybe you're not bringing everything you could be bringing to a coach.
I tried to do a poll. I can't figure out how to do it. It won't. I'm on my iPad. It won't let me.
Coaching or therapy session. So I really appreciate her sharing that and normalizing it here. Obviously, she's saying it in her own Sabrina way, but hopefully it normalizes that for you too. If every session doesn't feel, incredible, like great. Maybe that means it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, or maybe it means you're being pushed into a new thing that feels uncomfortable for you. Like I was mentioning to Sabrina, I think sometimes for her, feeling really seen and really supported creates discomfort, and it is a new pattern that she's working to get used to and feeling good around. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. It kind of means we're moving in the right direction here. So really appreciate her for normalizing that and hope it just helps everyone to hear that. Okay, but do you know what I'm about to ask you?
I don't, but I'm scared.
Did you remember that document that you signed? And if it is true that you are not feeling safe, then what are you supposed to do?
I'm supposed to tell Lacey I feel fine.
Okay, great. You just want to hate a little? You just want to be a hater today?
Today's my hater day. Today's the day.
Okay.
You know,
All right,
I won't be a hater next week. So if I'm still a hater next week, then I will start fucking firing people. But no, today's my hater day. I feel like the reviews
Okay.
on this week are gonna be like, ha ha ha, so fucking funny. I'm like, no, it's not.
You're like, no, I actually hate everyone. It's not funny. Okay, but are you gonna take next week time like off, or what are you doing? What's the plan?
That is the plan. So I have a big list before we get on the plane on Wednesday. Paul and I are sitting next to each other. We're in business class. It's a really nice long flight in those like fancy pod suite things. So I don't usually like to work on planes, but maybe I will because everything is done for the most part that needs to be done because I gave some.
Just have to throw that in there to make all of you little minions that listen to my podcast feel worse about yourself. I'm going on a flight next week and I'm sitting next to my husband in business class, which, by the way, if you didn't know, is the bigger seated part of the plane. So I can actually do work because I'm not in economy like the rest of you chumps. Ugh.
Some pretty hard deadlines. For Black Friday, all of our social posts and emails from previous years have been written, so I'm just going to repurpose those, but I need to look through them and pick them. I'd wanted to do it sooner, but there was just so much other stuff that I kept pushing it, knowing that I've got existing copy to pull from. So I'm probably going to do that on the plane on Wednesday, or I'll just do it once I get to America, just spend an hour and a half, go through everything, pick.
We can look after this at one other one and we'll just like skip to the middle and see what the vibe is.
Schedule it. But yeah, I'm able to take the next 10 days off for Thanksgiving like I had planned.
Because I think if you don't do that, you are going to lose your shit.
Yeah, sure will.
Right. So let's try to have that not happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go pretty psycho for the next 48 hours.
Yes.
And I also have to do like normal things like clean my room and do my laundry and feed myself. So I also have to do that shit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Real stuff.
I feel like a bratty teenager. I have to clean my room. Fuck that.
I mean,
you sound like a bratty teenager too.
You sound a little bit like one, but that's okay. Your bratty teenager is allowed to have a bad day and be pissed today, and then you're allowed to go be a CEO tomorrow. Like, both can be true.
I have to be a CEO in 5 minutes, Lacey. There is no until tomorrow.
Okay, well, you know what I meant. I was just like using that as a saying. But yes, in the next 5 minutes.
You get to do a clip in here about how Sabrina's an asshole, but Sabrina's also usually right.
I don't know that I would classify that as usually right, but sure.
I'll send Megan a clip in. Don't you worry. Hi, Leanne.
Nobody wants your clip in. Save your clip in.
Rude.
Okay, so you're taking the time. You're having this hard conversation today. You are staying consistent on your content. You are staying consistent on your mindset and selling. You are just going to keep journaling and venting when you need to.
Yep.
And then we are going to reevaluate with
I can't hear you.
2 weeks. I don't believe.
Exactly. That's my point. Is like, if I'm traveling somewhere, I will just say, I'm going to Texas. I won't say, I'm going to Texas flying business class with my husband. Like, why? Why do you have to throw that in there? I guess I get it. Like, they are trying to sell this luxury lifestyle at all times. So that's why they do it. But it just is so ridiculous to me.
I still can't hear you. And I'm not just saying that. Like, your audio cut out.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
I really don't believe you.
That would have been so funny if you were saying something serious. I'm just like, I can't hear you.
I'm sure that's never happened before, right?
Never. You're breaking up.
Okay, did you hear what I said, though?
I'm sure you were yelling at me about how I'm going to keep doing hard things and then I'm going to take a break and I'm going to be fine and I'm not going to kill anybody and I'm going to do my journaling because journaling is almost always the answer and how I don't get a clip in and I don't get an adoption and I have to really fucking fight for this legal name change. But yeah, anything for the podcast.
Life is super tough right now, huh? Yeah. It's just really kicking your ass this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's Monday.
It's Monday, right? Wow. Good luck. Okay, 2 weeks. Yeah. So it is November 14th. So we are having this conversation again when?
I don't know. My people will talk to your people. We'll get it scheduled. I don't know.
I feel like everyone's going to listen to this episode and be like, oh, I get why Lacey says Sabrina's tough. No, I'm kidding. You are doing great though. You really are. Like, again, you're being a feisty little, brat today, but at the end of the day, like, you're holding it together very well and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And you're going to do hard things and have hard conversations and it is going to go well. Yes.
And then I'm going to watch Law & Order SVU and
Yeah, I think it's like adoption of an actual baby.
cry into my pad thai and it's going to be great.
It's going to be great. Are you ready for your retreat?
Yes, I've done so fucking many of these. Like, I know I'll crush it no matter what, but I was just annoyed that like my retreat prep time kept getting taken away. So I'm glad we got to do it today.
Okay, good. All right. I love you. I'm proud of you. You're doing great.
I'm glad we got to do it today. They talked about the retreat for like 5 minutes of this 45-minute episode. That's what you needed to do. You complained about not having enough time for a retreat prep, but you were able to get it all accomplished in that 5 minutes where you were like, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. Yep, sounds good. Like, give me a fucking break when she's complaining about having to work for 10 hours. Like, define working. I would love to see it.
It's okay to be mad, and it's okay to keep moving.
Gross. Thank you.
Okay, love you, bye.
Love you.
Okay, let's just see, like, if we do episode 11 or something, like, is it going to be with... Okay, yeah, so they literally just have, like, a bunch of episodes together. 7-figure sales energy. Let's skip and see.
You're listening to...
You know, liars.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have been pretty irritated about that quite often recently. So I don't know if you're just mocking me at this point, but yes, that is fucking irritating, right?
I think that's part of what, because I was thinking about this because I knew you were going to yell at me about mindset today because, you know, 6 cents, whatevs. But I just had this, I was thinking, I was like, why don't I just want to go full sales balls? And it's because I feel like when I see that, I just associate it with bullshit these days.
Tell me what you mean. Like when you see someone really selling, or when you see people saying you just shouldn't have to sell?
Well, just, I feel like when I see people like really selling and like talking about the mindset and talking about the vibe and all that stuff, because I feel like there's a difference between like what people say versus what they're actually experiencing.
Cosign.
You know, I'm sure like you know this as well, but I feel like when you get to see the behind this, I know that your clients are obviously like very high integrity and so are mine, but still like when you get to see the behind the scenes of businesses, it might not even be our clients' businesses, but someone else or someone that they know, like we just know that like what people put on social media is not always what's happening in real life.
What are you saying here, Sabrina? What's happening in your real life?
Yeah. And so I feel like lately I've just been privy to a lot of that behind the scenes shit. And it almost like, I don't want to be like them in that I'm like selling invisible and doing all the things, even though like, I know that like I'm the happiest I've ever been. Like business is fucking banging, like everything's great, but it's still just, I have this like association in my brain, I feel like with the, you know, liars.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
okay, but keep in mind, this is session 8. I don't know how far apart these sessions are, but we just listened to session 9 where she's complaining about everything. So she's coming on this episode to say, don't believe people online what they're telling you because they're liars and their life isn't as good as they're saying. But not me. I love my life and my business is banging. Then she comes on literally the next week and is like, my employees suck. My business is horrible. I'm so rich. I don't even need to work. And now I have to work. Meh. Like, which story is it? Pick a narrative. Pick a narrative. Exactly. Everyone else is a liar except me. That's the vibe I'm getting anyway. I cannot subject myself to more of that. So we are not going to be doing that today. But that was fun, guys. I appreciate that. We had a really good time. Let me catch up on the comments. And by the way, if you are watching this video and you don't have a life coach or you don't want a life coach, to that all I have to say is
I'm always baffled when people don't have a life coach or don't want one. I'm like, what? It's the most amazing thing ever.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, yeah, so the carrot thing was that she was saying if she gets mad at someone, she'll go and sprinkle carrot seeds on their lawn so that they think weeds are growing, but then it's carrots. Yeah, that's kind of the takeaway I got there, considering we listened to those episodes in reverse. Very telling, if you will. I'm not like the other pyramid coaches. I'm a cool coach, guys. Now, buy my millionaire program. I feel like we've all grown together as a team and survived the wilderness. It was rough, guys, but we got through it. Suzanne says that was not life coaching. I have no idea what that was. I wouldn't call it business coaching either. It was more like a vent session. Like, can you imagine? I'm just speculating. I have no idea how much money these people pay each other. But based on where they're both at in business, I would assume that the girl who hired the coach that was hosting the podcast probably paid multiple tens of thousands of dollars for that. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for someone to be your friend. You're paying for someone that you can vent to, that can validate your feelings and maybe give you a little bit of constructive feedback. Not that I would even really say that that woman gave her constructive feedback. But if I'm being generous, let's just say that. That's why I have issues with how much money these people charge. Because from an outsider perspective, I can tell you right now, that wasn't worth that. I could have had the exact same scenario and gone to my friends or my partner for free and complained about the same thing and received better feedback than this woman just gave her. It was just, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe I should get a coach. Maybe you should. But I promise you, coaching is not a pyramid scheme, guys. So don't worry. Just give me all your money. Yeah. I don't need a coach to help me be an absolute disaster. I'm already acing that. Exactly. You're paying for a yes man that offers no real actionable advice or nothing like super thought-provoking, nothing like on the edge, you know, like nothing revolutionary. That's the word I'm looking for. It's like very basic. Yeah, well, your employee didn't do what you wanted. Have a meeting with them. Pay me $10,000 for that great advice. Yeah, exactly. Or you can join the billionaire tier here on my channel for $20 and we can give you advice. It might not be good advice, but it'll be better than the advice we just heard in that podcast. I can promise you that. For just $20 a month. Me and my team of coaches. And by team of coaches, I mean Suzanne and Harrison. And reaction therapy if he ever shows up. I love to see it. Wouldn't going to a therapist still be cheaper? Absolutely it would be. I actually don't know of like any of these business coaches that charge as like little as a therapist would. They all charge thousands of dollars for garbage, in my opinion. Allegedly, from what I've heard and seen on the internet. Yeah. I would never vent to this lady. She'd make a podcast episode about it, then grow carrots on my front porch. Guys, if you're in the billionaire tier and you're on our call, when is our call? Tomorrow or Wednesday? I'm going to record it and turn it into a podcast. So bring your best trauma so that I can exploit it on the internet for clients and views. I still can't believe I missed the carrot reference. I can send you the link to the episode and you can listen to it again. Help! I hate it. I'm just going to sow carrot seeds anywhere. That's the secret to getting rich, in case you were wondering. If you're still here, be sure to thumbs up the stream if you haven't already, or give it a thumbs down if you don't like it. That's fine too. You know, all opinions are welcome. She didn't give her any advice. She told her not to fire everyone and to give it 2 weeks. That's about everything I took from it. She also, at one point when they were talking about the schedule for the retreat, told her to not do one thing. That was the other piece of advice she gave, but that was it. And was that good advice? I don't know. Oh my goodness. That was painful. Thanks everyone for suffering through that with me. I really do appreciate the moral support. It does make all the difference. All right, friends, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're a little bit early today, but I don't think my brain can take much else, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, a 0 out of 10 would actually recommend you re-listen to that episode. Just imagine. I'm sure you can give yourself better advice than what you would hear there. Billionaire tier, I will see you on Wednesday. Everyone else, I will see you when I see you. I have some content coming eventually, so stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for being here, all right? I will mention once again, because I know some of you weren't here at the beginning, check out the community tab. I've linked to a new subreddit that I started. We can all hang out there when we're not hanging out here on live chat. So you guys are the realest. If you're watching the replay and you made it this far, thank you so much. Take care, comb your hair, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.